Have you ever heard of a house built by ghosts? A mansion so sprawling, so bizarre, that it's said to be a prison for restless spirits. Today, we're diving into the strange and tragic story of Sarah Winchester and the infamous Winchester Mystery House. A story that begins not with a hammer and nails, but with heartbreak and a terrifying curse. To understand the house, you first have to understand the woman who built it and the immense fortune that funded its madness. Sarah Winchester was married to William Wirt Winchester, the son of Oliver Winchester, the man behind the legendary Winchester Repeating Arms Company. The Winchester rifle, often called the gun that won the West, was a revolutionary piece of technology. It was fast, reliable, and deadly. It made the Winchester family astoundingly wealthy, one of the richest families in America. For a time, Sarah and William lived a life of luxury and privilege, a true American dream. But that dream was about to turn into a nightmare. Tragedy first struck in 1866. Sarah gave birth to a daughter, Annie Pardee Winchester. You can imagine the joy, the heir to this massive fortune. But that joy was tragically short-lived. Just a few weeks after her birth, Annie died from a childhood illness called marasmus. The loss was devastating. It plunged Sarah into a deep, inconsolable depression that would shadow her for the rest of her life. It's said that she never fully recovered from the death of her only child. Then, about 15 years later, in 1881, tragedy struck again. William Winchester, Sarah's beloved husband, contracted tuberculosis and died. At just 42 years old, Sarah was left a widow. But she wasn't just any widow. She inherited an incredible fortune, over $20 million, which would be worth more than $500 million today. She also gained a 50% stake in the Winchester Repeating Arms Company, providing her with a daily income of about $1,000. That's like getting over $30,000 every single day in today's money. She had all the money in the world, but she was utterly alone, haunted by the loss of her daughter and her husband, overwhelmed by grief and searching for answers. A friend suggested Sarah seek guidance from a spiritual medium. In the late 19th century, spiritualism was incredibly popular. Many people, especially those who had lost loved ones, turned to seances and mediums to try and make contact with the other side. Desperate for any kind of comfort or explanation for her suffering, Sarah agreed. She traveled to Boston to meet with a well-known medium named Adam Coons. What happened in that dark, candlelit room would change Sarah Winchester's life forever, and set in motion the construction of one of the weirdest houses on earth. The medium supposedly channeled the spirit of her late husband, William. The message he delivered was chilling. William's spirit told Sarah that their family wasn't just unlucky, they were cursed. He claimed that the immense Winchester fortune was built on blood. Every person killed by a Winchester rifle soldiers, Native Americans, countless others, their spirits were now seeking revenge. The medium told her that the spirits of these victims were responsible for the deaths of her daughter and her husband. And now, he warned, they were coming for her. Her life was in danger. Sarah, already fragile and steeped in grief, was terrified. But the spirit offered a strange path to salvation. He told her she must leave her home in New Haven, Connecticut, and travel west, toward the setting sun. There, she was to start a new life and build a great house. But this was no ordinary construction project. The spirit gave her a bizarre and unending task. She must never, ever stop building. As long as the sound of hammers echoed through the halls of her new home, she would be safe from the angry ghosts. The moment construction stopped, she would die. This wasn't just about building a home. It was about building a maze, a spiritual labyrinth to confuse and trap the vengeful spirits that haunted her. The constant construction, the ever-changing blueprint, was her only hope for survival. Imagine being told that your only chance at life is to continuously build a house for the ghosts of people killed by your family's invention. It's a terrifying and overwhelming burden. Driven by this grim prophecy and her own profound guilt, Sarah Winchester packed her bags. She left her old life behind and headed west to the sunny Santa Clara Valley in California. In 1886, she purchased a modest, unfinished 8-room farmhouse on a large plot of land. And there, the work began. She hired a team of carpenters, and for the next 38 years, they worked around the clock, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, the quiet farmhouse began to transform, growing and mutating into a monstrous, sprawling mansion with no rhyme or reason. Sarah became the architect of her own bewildering world. She had no master blueprint. Each morning, it said she would enter a private room, the Blue Room, to hold her own seances. There, she believed she received her daily building instructions from the spirits themselves. She would emerge with crude sketches on napkins or scraps of paper, handing them to her bewildered foreman. A new room here, a staircase there, a chimney that stopped short of the ceiling. The house grew into a chaotic jumble of Victorian architecture. Staircases lead to blank walls. Doors open into nothing but a two-story drop to the garden below. Hallways twist into a confusing maze. Windows are built into floors. There are 13 bathrooms, but only one is functional. The number 13, a number Sarah was obsessed with, appears everywhere. 13 window panes, 13 steps on staircases, 13 ceiling panels. Was Sarah Winchester truly haunted by the ghosts of the gun, or was she a brilliant but eccentric woman, consumed by grief and guilt, trying to make sense of her tragic life? Was the house a genuine attempt to appease angry spirits, or was it a massive, creative project to keep her mind occupied and give jobs to her community? The lines between superstition, mental anguish, and architectural madness are completely blurred. Her story is a powerful reminder of how tragedy can shape a life in the most unexpected ways. The curse, whether real or imagined, set Sarah Winchester on a path that would create a legacy far stranger than the rifle that started it all. The Winchester Mystery House isn't just a collection of wood and nails. It's a monument to one woman's immense grief, her crushing guilt, and her desperate, lifelong attempt to outrun the ghosts of her past. Have you ever heard of a house that was built, not for the living, but for the dead? A house where construction never stopped for 38 years. Today, we're diving into the bizarre and fascinating story of Sarah Winchester and the house that seemingly had no end. Our story begins with Sarah Winchester, the heiress to the massive Winchester repeating armed company fortune. After the devastating loss of her infant daughter and later her husband, William Sarah was left a very wealthy but deeply grieving widow. Consumed by sorrow, she sought answers from a spiritual medium in Boston. The medium delivered a chilling message. The spirits of all those killed by the Winchester rifle were angry. They were haunting her family, and she was their next target. The medium's instructions were strange and specific. Sarah had to move west and build a great house for herself and for the spirits. But here was the catch. She must never stop building. The day the construction ceased, the medium warned, would be the day she would die. Terrified but determined, Sarah packed her bags and headed to the Santa Clara Valley in California. In 1886, she purchased an unassuming atrium farmhouse and began a construction project that would become one of the most mysterious architectural marvels in American history. What started as a simple farmhouse soon grew into a sprawling, chaotic mansion. Carpenters worked around the clock, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for 38 years. The sound of hammers and saws was a constant soundtrack to life at the estate. Sarah had no master plan, no blueprints. She would allegedly sketch designs on napkins or scraps of paper, sometimes claiming the spirits themselves were her architects. Each night, at midnight, Sarah would retreat to a special room called the Seance Room. There, she would communicate with the spirits, who would supposedly give her the building instructions for the following day. These ghostly directives led to some of the house's most bewildering features. Imagine walking through this house. You'd find staircases that lead directly into the ceiling, doors that open onto a two-story drop to the garden below, a cabinet that, when opened, reveals it's only an inch deep, while another opens into a maze of 30 other rooms. There are windows in the floors, secret passages, and a recurring spiderweb motif, a design Sarah believed had spiritual significance. The number 13 is everywhere. 13 bathrooms, 13 ceiling panels in many rooms, windows with 13 panes, even 13 hooks in her seance room. The house became a labyrinth, designed to confuse not just visitors, but the vengeful spirits she believed were pursuing her. The maze-like corridors, switchback staircases with tiny 2-inch risers, and dead ends were all part of her plan to trap and elude the ghosts. She even slept in a different bedroom every night, moving secretly through the house so the spirits couldn't find her. The sheer scale of the project was staggering. At its peak, the mansion covered over 6 acres and had an estimated 160 rooms, 47 fireplaces, 10,000 windows, and 2,000 doors. It was a city within a house, complete with its own gas manufacturing plant, water tower, and state-of-the-art plumbing and heating systems. Sarah spared no expense, using the finest materials like Tiffany-stained glass and precious woods from around the world. Her inheritance, which amounted to about $20 million in astronomical sum at the time, was poured into the endless construction. But was Sarah Winchester really haunted? Or was there another explanation? Some historians offer a more practical perspective. They suggest that Sarah was not driven by fear, but by a sense of philanthropy and guilt. Her vast fortune was derived from a weapon that caused immense suffering. Perhaps the non-stop construction was her way of creating jobs and giving back to the community, a form of penance. The constant work employed hundreds of local craftsmen for decades, providing them with steady, well-paid employment. Others believe she was simply an eccentric but brilliant woman with a passion for architecture, free from the constraints of convention and budget. She used her house as a giant canvas for her creative and experimental ideas. Some of the features, like the easy-to-climb stairs, might have simply been for her own comfort as she aged and suffered from severe arthritis. The endless construction finally came to a halt on September 5, 1922, the day Sarah Winchester passed away in her sleep at the age of 83. True to the medium-esque prophecy, the hammers fell silent the moment she died. Upon her death, movers and appraisers entered the bewildering home. It is said they needed a map to navigate its corridors and that it took them 6 weeks to empty the house of its furniture. They found safes filled, not with riches, but with locks of her daughter's and husband's hair. In her will, she left her fortune to her niece and her favorite secretary, but made no mention of the massive, strange house she had spent half her life building. Today, the Winchester Mystery House stands as a popular tourist attraction in San Jose, California. Visitors can tour its winding hallways and bizarre rooms, experiencing the architectural chaos firsthand. Is it a monument to one woman's grief and fear, a massive act of charity, or the playground of an architectural genius? The truth likely lies somewhere in between. The house remains a testament to a story shrouded in mystery, a building designed not for comfort or logic, but to appease the restless souls of the dead. Have you ever heard of a house built by ghosts? A sprawling, chaotic mansion with staircases that lead to ceilings, doors that open to brick walls, and windows that look into other rooms. This isn't a scene from a horror movie. It's a real place. Welcome to the Winchester Mystery House, a labyrinth of wood and glass that stands as one of America's most perplexing architectural oddities. For nearly 40 years, construction never stopped. Day and night, the sound of hammers echoed as a lonely heiress tried to build her way out of a curse. But was she truly haunted by vengeful spirits, or was she a brilliant, misunderstood architect with a secret plan? Today, we're unlocking the doors to this bizarre estate to uncover the truth behind the madness. Is this a monument to one woman's grief and paranoia, or is there a hidden method to this architectural maze? Grab your flashlight. We're going in. The story begins with Sarah Winchester, the heiress to the Winchester Repeating Arms Company fortune. After the sudden deaths of her infant daughter and her husband, William, Sarah was left a widow with immense wealth, but also consumed by grief. Legend says she sought the help of a Boston medium, who told her a chilling tale. The spirits of all those killed by the Winchester rifle were angry, and they were coming for her. The only way to appease them, the medium claimed, was to move west and start building a house for them, and she must never, ever stop construction. If the sound of hammers ever fell silent, she would be the next to die. So, in 1886, Sarah bought a small, unfinished farmhouse in San Jose, California, and began what would become a 38-year-long construction project. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, carpenters and craftsmen worked on the house, following plans that Sarah would supposedly sketch out on napkins and scrap paper each night during her seances with the spirits. The result: a sprawling Victorian mansion that grew without any master blueprint. At its peak, it was 7 stories high, a jumble of gables, turrets, and mismatched windows. But after the great 1906 San Francisco earthquake, the top 3 floors collapsed, leaving the four-story structure we see today. Even with the damage, the house is a dizzying spectacle. It boasts around 160 rooms, though the exact number is still debated because the layout is so confusing. There are 47 fireplaces, but many of them are non-functional. There are 10,000 windows, some of which are installed in floors. And then there are the doors, the infamous doors to nowhere that open onto sheer drops from the second floor. What possible reason could there be for such a feature? The popular theory is that these were decoys, designed to trick the malicious spirits that Sarah believed were hunting her. A ghost might burst through a door, only to fall to the garden below, giving Sarah a chance to escape. The same logic is applied to the staircases. One particularly strange example is a staircase that goes up 7 steps and then immediately down 11. It doesn't lead anywhere. Another is the switchback staircase, with 44 tiny steps that only rise about 9 feet, winding back and forth in a tight space. Each step is only 2 inches high. Was this to confuse ghosts who couldn't navigate such bizarre pathways? Or was it, as some suggest, a practical solution for Sarah's severe arthritis, allowing her to move between floors with less strain? The number 13 is everywhere in this house, a detail that fuels the occult theories. There are 13 bathrooms, windows with 13 panes of glass, 13 hooks in the seance room, and staircases with 13 steps. Sarah's will was even divided into 13 parts, which she signed 13 times. Was she obsessed with the number? Perhaps as a way to control the supernatural forces she feared. Or was it just a recurring quirk? A coincidence that has been blown out of proportion over the years. Every night at midnight, a large bell would toll, supposedly to call the spirits to ascend. Then again, at 2 a.m., it would ring to signal their departure. Sarah had a private seance room, located in the heart of the house, with only 1 entrance, but 3 exits. It is said that this is where she would receive her building instructions for the following day from the good spirits, while also planning her escape routes from the bad ones. But let's pause for a moment and consider a different perspective. Was Sarah Winchester really a tormented woman driven by superstition? Or have we been telling the wrong story all this time? Some modern historians and researchers are challenging the crazy widow narrative. They point out that there is no hard evidence, no diaries, no letters from Sarah herself that confirm she believed her house was haunted. The entire ghost story comes from sensationalized newspaper articles and local gossip that circulated after her death. So, if not ghosts, what's the explanation? One compelling theory is that Sarah was not a mad woman, but a frustrated genius. As a woman in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, she wouldn't have been taken seriously as an architect or an inventor. The Winchester House, then, could be seen as her personal sandbox, a place where she could experiment with new building techniques and design concepts without judgment. The house features advanced conveniences for its time, including indoor plumbing, forced air heating, and even elevators. The weird staircases, perhaps they were prototypes, experiments in structural engineering. The doors to nowhere. Maybe they were intended for balconies or wings that were simply never finished. This theory paints Sarah not as a victim of her fears, but as a pioneer. She was a woman of immense intelligence and creativity who, shackled by the social norms of her era, channeled her talents into the only project she could fully control, her own home. She continuously hired local craftsmen, providing steady jobs and fair wages for decades, effectively acting as a major economic engine for the community. Instead of a haunted house, maybe it's a monument to a brilliant woman's unfulfilled potential. And what about the ghosts? To this day, visitors and staff report strange occurrences. The sounds of footsteps in empty hallways, doors slamming on their own, and doorknobs that turn by themselves. People have reported seeing shadowy figures, including a man believed to be a former carpenter named Clyde, still working on the house. Others claim to have seen Sarah herself, a small, somber figure in black, drifting through the rooms she spent a lifetime building. Are these real paranormal encounters, or just the product of an overactive imagination in a house designed to disorient and confuse? The twisting corridors and dead ends create a naturally unsettling atmosphere. Your own mind can easily play tricks on you in a place like this. So, what is the final verdict on the Winchester Mystery House? Is it a ghost trap built by a paranoid heiress? Or is it the life's work of an eccentric but brilliant innovator? Perhaps The truth lies somewhere in between. It's entirely possible that a grieving Sarah, burdened by the legacy of the gun that won the West, sought to create something positive with her fortune, a project of endless creation to counteract the destruction her family's name was built on. The strange designs might have been a blend of her own creative whims, practical solutions for her aging body, and yes, maybe even a touch of superstition. The house remains an enigma, a puzzle box with no solution. It forces us to question what we believe about ghosts, grief, and genius. Sarah Winchester left no diary, no blueprint, no explanation. All she left was the house itself, a sprawling, magnificent, and utterly baffling testament to her life. Whether you see it as a monument to madness or a masterpiece of method, one thing is certain. The Winchester Mystery House is a place that will capture your imagination and refuse to let go. For nearly 40 years, Sarah Winchester, the reclusive heiress to the Winchester rifle fortune, oversaw a construction project so bizarre, so relentless, it would become one of America's most enduring mysteries. From 1886 until the day she died in 1922, the sound of hammers never ceased at her sprawling mansion in San Jose, California. Workers toiled 24 hours a day, adding rooms, hallways, and staircases with no apparent logic, creating a labyrinth that defied all architectural sense. Why? The popular legend says she was haunted. Haunted by the spirits of every person killed by a Winchester rifle. A Boston medium allegedly told her the only way to appease these restless souls was to continuously build a house for them. If the construction ever stopped, she would be next. So she built and built. The mansion grew into a chaotic marvel. Staircases lead to ceilings, doors open onto blank walls, or a terrifying two-story drop to the garden below. Hallways twist into dizzying mazes, and windows are built into interior rooms. It's a physical manifestation of a tortured mind, a maze designed to confuse not just the living, but the dead. Sarah reportedly slept in a different bedroom each night, navigating her own bewildering creation with a map, all to elude the spirits she believed were hunting her. The house became a sprawling estate of over 160 rooms, with 47 fireplaces, 10,000 windows, and 2,000 doors. But beyond the strange architecture, Sarah's obsession with the number 13 is woven into the very fabric of the mansion. There are 13 bathrooms, 13 pane windows, 13 steps on many staircases, and even the chandeliers were modified to hold 13 candles. The grand ballroom, which cost a fortune, was built with 13 distinct panels of wood. This was all part of the ritual, a desperate attempt to control the supernatural forces she felt were closing in on her. One of the most enigmatic parts of the house is the seance room, located deep within the mansion's core. This small, windowless room had only 3 exits and 1 entrance. It's said that every night at midnight, Sarah would enter this room alone, summoned by the toll of a bell. She would commune with the spirits, receiving her architectural instructions for the next day. What new hallway should they build? Which door should lead to nowhere? These nightly consultations were the blueprints for the madness, the source of the ever-changing, never-ending construction that puzzled her workers and the outside world. But in the early morning hours of September 5th, 1922, an unnatural silence fell over the Winchester property. For the first time in 38 years, the hammers stopped. Sarah Winchester had passed away in her sleep at the age of 83. Her long, strange vigil was finally over. Her death was as quiet and mysterious as her life. She was found in one of the mansion's many bedrooms, having died of heart failure. The question on everyone's mind was immediate. What would happen now? What secrets would her death finally unlock? With Sarah gone, the attention turned to her last will and testament. People expected it to be as eccentric as her life, perhaps containing instructions for the mansion or clues to her hidden fortune. After all, she had inherited an immense sum, equivalent to over $500 million today, and received a daily income that would be worth over $30,000 in modern currency. Surely, a vast treasure was hidden somewhere within the maze of rooms. The will was located, and its contents were shocking, but not in the way anyone anticipated. The document was opened, and her possessions were divided. She left some bequests to her favorite servants and her beloved niece, who had been her secretary and companion for years. But the vast bulk of her immense fortune was gone. It had been spent, poured into the endless, obsessive construction of the house. There was no hidden treasure, no secret stockpile of gold. The mansion itself was her legacy and her folly. The will was broken down into 13 parts and signed 13 times. One final nod to her obsession. As for the house, she made no mention of it in her will. It was left to her niece, who, overwhelmed by the property, auctioned off nearly everything inside. It took 6 trucks working for 8 weeks to empty the house of its contents, but eventually, the house held one last secret. Movers discovered a hidden safe. 4 weeks, excitement grew. Was this it? The hidden fortune. When locksmiths finally cracked it open, they found ... Nothing. Nothing but 2 locks of hair. One from Sarah's infant daughter who had died decades earlier, and one from her husband. It was a heartbreaking reminder that, beneath the ghost stories and the eccentricities, Sarah Winchester was a woman defined by grief. With no instructions left, the construction ceased forever. The half-finished rooms, the dangling pipes, the staircases, to nowhere they were all frozen in time. A snapshot of the very moment her heart stopped beating. The house, which was once a private, terrifying sanctuary, quickly became a public curiosity. It was dubbed the Winchester Mystery House and opened for tours, captivating visitors with its strange design and chilling backstory. But has Sarah really left? Many believe her spirit, and the spirits of those she tried to appease, are still there. Visitors and staff report a myriad of paranormal phenomena. Disembodied footsteps are heard, echoing down empty hallways. Doors slam shut on their own. The scent of chicken soup, Sarah's favorite comfort food, mysteriously wafts from the old kitchen. People report seeing spectral figures, from a man in overalls, believed to be a former workman, to a woman in a Victorian dress, thought to be Sarah herself, still wandering her eternal maze. The house remains a monument to one woman's grief, fear, and obsession. Was Sarah Winchester truly haunted by legions of ghosts? Or was she a brilliant but troubled architect? Consumed by a personal tragedy she could never escape. Perhaps the answer is a little of both. The Winchester Mystery House isn't just a collection of strange rooms. It's a puzzle box with no solution, a story with no clear ending. And that's why, over a century later, it continues to haunt the American imagination. A beautiful, terrifying, and utterly baffling mystery. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.